In the quiet village of Olarunwa, there lived a woman named Mama Ronk. She was known far and wide for her cooking. Whenever there was a celebration, be it a wedding, a naming ceremony, or even a festival, Mama Ronk was the one everyone called to cook. Her food was magical. The jollof rice she made had the perfect balance of spices, her egusi soup was thick and rich, and her puff-puffs were soft and sweet like honey. People in the village would say, even the spirits would leave their graves to eat Mama Ronk's food. But what nobody knew was that Mama Ronk had a secret, an evil secret. Every evening, when the sun set and the villagers returned to their homes, Mama Ronk would pick up her clay pot and head toward the old cemetery at the edge of the village. There, she would fetch water from the little pool that formed near the graves. This water wasn't ordinary water. It was believed to carry the essence of the dead buried there. Mama Ronk would whisper to herself, "This is the ingredient that makes my food the best. Without this water, my food will taste like everyone else's." One day, a young girl named Saad who lived near Mama Ronk became curious. She had always wondered why Mama Ronk's food was so much better than her own mother's, even though they used the same ingredients. One night, Saad couldn't sleep. She sat by the window and saw Mama Ronk sneaking out of her house with her clay pot. Quietly, Saad followed her, hiding behind trees and bushes. When Mama Ronk reached the cemetery, Saad watched in horror as the woman filled her pot with the strange, dark water near the graves. Saad gasped loudly, and Mama Ronk turned around, her eyes flashing like fireflies in the dark. "Who's there?" Mama Ronk called, her voice sharp and cold. Saad crouched behind a bush, holding her breath. She watched as Mama Ronk looked around before hurrying back to her house. The next day, Mama Ronk was asked to cook for a village festival. Saad sat with her friends, watching the adults laugh and cheer as they ate Mama Ronk's delicious food. Everyone was happy, but Saad couldn't eat. She kept staring at Mama Ronk, wondering if she should tell someone what she had seen. As night fell and the festival ended, Mama Ronk smiled to herself, proud of how much everyone loved her food. But deep down, she wondered if someone had been watching her secret trip to the cemetery. What would happen if the villagers found out? Would Saad gather the courage to tell the truth, or would she keep quiet, fearing Mama Ronk's anger? Saad could hardly sleep that night. The image of Mama Ronk filling her pot with the strange water haunted her. She tossed and turned, her heart heavy with fear and confusion. "What if I tell and nobody believes me?" she whispered to herself. "What if Mama Ronk finds out I followed her?" The next morning, as the village buzzed with talk about how delicious the food at the festival had been, Saad sat quietly in a corner, staring at Mama Ronk from afar. The older woman was cheerful as she greeted everyone, handing out leftover food wrapped in leaves. Her laugh echoed through the village, but to Saad, it sounded different now, like the laugh of someone hiding something dark. Later that day, Saad decided to speak to her best friend, Tamawa, about what she had seen. They met under the big mango tree at the edge of the village, where they always went to share secrets. "Tommy, I saw something last night," Saad began, her voice trembling. "What did you see?" Tamawa asked, leaning in closer. Saad hesitated, then whispered, "I followed Mama Ronk to the cemetery. She takes water from the graves and uses it to cook her food." Tamawa's eyes widened. "Are you sure? Maybe it was just ordinary water." "No, Tommy. I saw her with my own eyes." She was whispering to the graves. "It's not ordinary water." Tamawa scratched his head, unsure of what to say. "If this is true, we need to tell someone." "But who? What if nobody believes us? And what if Mama Ronk does something to us?" Sada's voice shook. Tamawa thought for a moment. "Let's watch her again tonight. If we see her go to the cemetery, we'll know for sure. Then we can tell Baba Ade, the village elder. He will believe us." Saad wasn't sure if she wanted to spy on Mama Ronk again, but she nodded. "Okay. Tonight, we'll watch her together." As the sun set, Saad and Tamawa hid behind the same bush Saad had used the night before. They waited quietly, their hearts pounding as they kept their eyes on Mama Ronk's house. Just as the moon rose high in the sky, Mama Ronk stepped out, carrying her clay pot. She looked around carefully before heading toward the cemetery. "This is it," Tamawa whispered, gripping Sada's hand. They followed her, staying as quiet as mice. When they reached the cemetery, they hid behind a tall tombstone and watched as Mama Ronk knelt by the dark pool of water. She dipped her pot into the water, her lips moving as if she was chanting. The wind around her seemed to pick up, making the trees sway and groan. Suddenly Mama Ronk stopped. She turned her head sharply, looking directly at the tombstone where Sad and Tamawa were hiding. "Who is there?" she demanded, her voice low and dangerous. Sad and Tamawa froze, their hearts pounding like drums. They didn't dare move, but they knew Mama Ronk had sensed something. Would she catch them? Would they have the courage to escape and reveal her secret to the villagers? Sad held her breath, her hand gripping Tamawa's so tightly that his fingers began to hurt. They stayed perfectly still, hoping the darkness would hide them from Mama Ronk's sharp eyes. "I know someone is here," Mama Ronk said again, her voice rising. She stood up, her clay pot full of the strange water, and began walking toward the tombstone. Sada's heart raced. She whispered to Tamawa, "What do we do?" "Run," Tamawa mouthed silently, his eyes wide with fear. Just as Mama Ronk was about to reach their hiding spot, a loud hoot echoed through the cemetery. An owl flapped its wings and flew out of a nearby tree, startling Mama Ronk. She stopped and looked around, her eyes scanning the shadows. "Foolish children," she muttered under her breath. "If I catch you, you'll wish you never came here." But instead of searching further, she turned and walked back toward the village, muttering to herself. Sad and Tamawa stayed frozen until her figure disappeared into the darkness. "We need to go," Tamawa whispered urgently. Quietly, they crept out of the cemetery and ran all the way back to Sada's house. Inside, they sat on the floor, panting and shaking. "She knows," Sad said, her voice trembling. "She knows someone was watching her. What if she comes after us?" Tamawa asked, looking around nervously. "We have to tell Baba Ade," Sad said, summoning her courage. "He's the only one who can stop her." The next morning, the two friends went to Baba Ade's compound. The old man was sitting under the shade of a palm tree, chewing on a kola nut. He looked up as they approached. "Ah, Sad Tamawa," he said. "What brings you here so early?" Sad hesitated, glancing at Tamawa before speaking. "Baba, it's about Mama Ronk. She's doing something bad." Baba Ade's eyes narrowed. "What kind of bad thing?" "She uses water from the cemetery to cook her food," Sad blurted out. "We saw her with our own eyes. She takes it from the graves." Baba Ade leaned forward, his face serious. "Do you know what you're saying, child? These are heavy accusations." "It's true, Baba," Tamawa added. "We followed her last night. She went to the cemetery with her clay pot and took water from the pool there." The old man sat back, stroking his white beard. "If what you say is true, then this is a grave matter indeed. But we cannot act without proof. The villagers will not believe us without evidence. What do we do, Baba?" Sad asked, her voice small. Baba Ade thought for a moment before speaking. "Tonight I will join you. We will watch Mama Ronk together. If she truly does what you say, we will confront her." Sad and Tamawa exchanged nervous glances. The idea of going back to the cemetery terrified them, but they knew it was the only way to stop Mama Ronk. As the sun set that evening, the three of them hid near Mama Ronk's house, waiting for her to make her move. The village was quiet and the stars sparkled above, but Sada's heart felt heavy with fear. When Mama Ronk finally stepped out, her clay pot in hand, the group followed her, staying hidden in the shadows. This time, Baba Ade carried a small lantern to light their way. As they reached the cemetery, they watched Mama Ronk kneel by the dark pool once again. She began her strange chant, her voice low and eerie. The wind seemed to swirl around her, and the trees groaned as if they were alive. Baba Ade's face grew dark. "It is worse than I feared," he whispered. What do we do now? Tamawa asked, his voice shaking. We wait, Baba Ade said. And when the time is right, we will confront her. But just as he finished speaking, Mama Ronk's chant stopped. She stood up suddenly and turned toward their hiding place, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. You dare follow me again? She hissed, her voice filled with fury. Saad felt her knees buckle as Mama Ronk's glowing eyes fixed on their hiding spot. The air seemed to grow colder, and the trees around them creaked as if warning them to run. Baba Ade, however, stood his ground, gripping his lantern tightly. Mama Ronk, Baba Ade said, stepping out from behind the tombstone. His voice was calm but firm. Why do you chant over the graves and fetch water from this cursed place? Mama Ronk smirked, her glowing eyes narrowing. Ah, Baba Ade, she said, her voice dripping with mockery. You of all people should understand. This water is a gift from the spirits. Makes my food special. It brings joy to the people of Olorunwa. Why should you complain when they sing my praises? The spirits do not give such gifts freely, Baba Ade replied. What price do you pay, Mama Ronk? What evil are you hiding behind your delicious meals? Mama Ronk's smirk vanished. Her face grew dark and she raised the clay pot in her hands. You meddle in things you do not understand, old man. If you value your life, leave now and forget what you've seen. Baba Ade stepped closer, unafraid. The people of Olorunwa deserve to know the truth. I will not leave until you explain yourself. Mama Ronk's lips curled into a snarl. She slammed the clay pot onto the ground, and the dark water spilled out, soaking into the earth. Instantly, a foul smell filled the air, and the ground beneath them began to tremble. Saad and Tamawa clutched each other, their eyes wide with fear. Baba, what's happening? Saad whispered. The spirits are restless, Baba Ade said. She has angered them. From the pool of spilled water, a dark mist began to rise, twisting and swirling into the shape of a figure. The figure's face was pale and hollow, its eyes empty and cold. It pointed a long bony finger at Mama Ronk. You have taken too much, Ronk, the figure said in a voice that echoed like thunder. Your greed has upset the balance. The spirits demand payment. Mama Ronk's confident demeanor shattered. She fell to her knees, trembling. No, please, she cried. I only did it to help the people. I didn't mean to. Silence, the spirit roared. The ground shook harder and the wind howled through the cemetery. Saad and Tamawa huddled closer together, terrified. Baba Ade stood firm, raising his lantern toward the spirit. Great One, we are here to restore balance. Spare the innocent and take only what is owed. The spirit turned its empty eyes toward Baba Ade. Balance must be restored, it said. But the one who has taken must pay. Mama Ronk's face twisted with fear as she scrambled backward. No, it wasn't just me. The villagers ate the food. They should pay too. You gave willingly and you took willingly, the spirit said. Now you will face the judgment of the grave. The dark mist began to swirl faster around Mama Ronk, pulling her toward the pool of water. She screamed, clawing at the ground, but the force was too strong. No. Baba Ade, help me, she cried. Baba Ade looked at her with pity but did not move. You have brought this upon yourself, Ronk. The spirits are not to be toyed with. As the mist closed in on Mama Ronk, Saad and Tamawa could barely watch. But just as the final moment seemed near, the ground suddenly stopped shaking, and the spirit turned to Baba Ade. The girl and the boy, it said, its hollow voice softer now. They have witnessed the truth. They hold the choice to decide her fate. Saad and Tamawa froze as the spirit's empty eyes fixed on them. The air felt heavy like a weight pressing down on their chests. Saada's legs trembled and she clung to Tamawa's arm. Us? Saad stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Why us? You followed her, the spirit said, its voice echoing like a deep drum. You uncovered her secret. It is your courage that has brought this moment to pass. The spirits grant you the choice, let her pay or spare her. Mama Ronk, still trapped in the swirling mist, turned her tear-streaked face toward the children. Saad Tamawa, please, she begged. You've eaten my food. You know I only wanted to bring joy to the village. Don't let them take me. Sada's mind raced. She remembered the way Mama Ronk's food had made everyone happy, how her jollof rice had brought smiles even during hard times. But then she thought about the graves, the dark water, and the screams she'd heard in the cemetery. Was it worth the pain she had caused to others? Tamawa whispered to Saad, we can't decide this. What if we make the wrong choice? Baba Ade stepped forward, his face calm but grave. Children, the spirits have placed this burden on you. Whatever you decide, it will change the fate of the village and this woman. Speak from your hearts. The mist swirled tighter around Mama Ronk as the spirit's voice rang out again. Time is short. Decide now. Saad felt her throat tighten as tears welled up in her eyes. She looked at Tamawa, hoping he had an answer, but he looked just as lost as she felt. Finally, Saad took a deep breath and stepped forward. If we spare her, she said, her voice shaking, what will happen to the spirits she has angered? The spirit's hollow voice replied, their rest will remain disturbed until balance is restored. If she is taken, their peace will return. Saad turned to Mama Ronk, her heart pounding. You lied to everyone. You used something evil to make people love your food. How can we trust you won't do it again? I swear I won't. Mama Ronk cried, her hands reaching out desperately. I'll never go near the cemetery again. I'll cook with clean water. Please, Saad Tamawa, don't let them take me. Tamawa finally stepped forward, his voice trembling. Saad, maybe she deserves another chance. Everyone loves her food. What if she really does change? Baba Ade placed a hand on Tamawa's shoulder. A second chance is a heavy gift. You must be certain she will not abuse it. Saad looked at Mama Ronk again, then back at the spirit. Her mind was filled with questions she couldn't answer, fears she couldn't shake. Finally she whispered, we. Before she could finish, the spirit's mist swirled violently, and the air grew colder. Your decision will echo through this village forever, the spirit said, its voice thunderous. Choose wisely, children. Sada's voice wavered as she stared into the swirling mist. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed, and she could barely breathe under the pressure of the spirit's demand. She opened her mouth to speak but couldn't find the words. Mama Ronk's voice broke through the silence. Saad Tamawa, you know me? I'm not a bad person. I only wanted to make people happy. Please don't let them take me. Tamawa tugged at Sada's arm. Saad, we have to decide. If we wait too long, the spirits might do something worse to her, or to us. Saad nodded, her lips trembling. She stepped forward, her small figure illuminated by Baba Ade's lantern. Spirit, she began, her voice quaking, if we spare her, how will balance be restored? Can we help in another way? The spirit paused, the mist swirling slower as if considering her question. If she is spared, it said, another price must be paid. The balance demands sacrifice. Saad felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of sacrifice? The kind that will ensure she never defile our rest again, the spirit replied. Its hollow voice carried a weight that made Sada's knees buckle. Mama Ronk shook her head violently. No. Don't listen to it. It wants revenge, not balance. Baba Ade raised his lantern higher, his voice firm. Spirit, speak clearly. What is this sacrifice you demand? The spirit turned its empty gaze to Baba Ade. She must give up her craft. The hands that cooked with the water of the dead must never touch a pot again. Her ability to cook, the skill that brought her glory, will be taken forever. Gasps escaped from Saad and Tamawa. Mama Ronk screamed, clutching her hands to her chest. No, please. Cooking is all I have. It's my life. Tamawa whispered to Saad, if we agree, the village will lose the best food they've ever had. What if everyone blames us? Sada's mind raced. She looked at Baba Ade, hoping for guidance, but his face was unreadable. She turned to Mama Ronk, who was sobbing uncontrollably, and then back to the spirit. If we agree to this, Saad said cautiously, will the spirits forgive her and leave the village in peace? The spirit's voice softened, though it still echoed with power. Balance will be restored and we will rest once more. But know this, should she break the promise, the curse will return, and it will consume all who defied us. Mama Ronk wailed louder. Please children, don't do this to me. I swear I'll never use the water again. Please. Saad felt her heart ache. She looked at Tamawa, who nodded slowly. We have to do it, he said. It's the only way. Tears streaming down her face, Saad turned back to the spirit. Her voice shook as she said, we choose the sacrifice. Take her skill but spare her life. The spirit let out a deep, rumbling sound that shook the ground. The mist swirled violently around Mama Ronk, and she screamed as the air grew colder. The clay pot shattered on the ground, and the water evaporated into the night sky. When the mist cleared, Mama Ronk was lying on the ground, her hands trembling. She looked at them, her eyes filled with despair. It's gone, she whispered. I can feel it. My gift, it's gone. The spirit's voice echoed one last time. Balance is restored. But remember, should she betray this vow, the grave will come for her, and for you. The cemetery fell silent, and the cold wind vanished. Baba Ade lowered his lantern, his face somber. It is done, he said. Saad and Tamawa helped Mama Ronk to her feet. She looked broken, her once proud eyes now filled with emptiness. The three of them walked back to the village in silence, the weight of their decision pressing heavily on their shoulders. But deep in the shadows of the cemetery, a faint glimmer of mist remained, swirling quietly in the dark. The walk back to the village felt endless. Saad and Tamawa exchanged worried glances, unsure what the morning would bring. Mama Ronk walked behind them, silent and hunched, her once proud stride now replaced by shuffling steps. Baba Ade carried his lantern, its warm light casting long, flickering shadows on the ground. When they reached the edge of the village, Baba Ade turned to Mama Ronk. You must speak to the people, he said. Tell them the truth about what you've done. They deserve to know, and it will help lift the shadow of this curse from the village. Mama Ronk's face twisted with fear and anger. Tell them? Do you know what they'll do to me? They'll chase me out of Olarunwa, or worse. They will be angry, Baba Ade admitted. But honesty is the only way forward. If you try to hide, the spirits will return, and this time they may not be so merciful. Mama Ronk shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. I can't. I'll lose everything. You've already lost your gift, Baba Ade said firmly. Now you must decide if you will lose your honor as well. Saad watched silently, her heart heavy. She had always admired Mama Ronk. It was hard to reconcile the kind woman who had fed the village with the person who had done such dark things. Suddenly Tamawa spoke up. Maybe we don't have to tell everyone at once, he said, his voice cautious. What if we start with just a few people, like the elders? They can help explain it to the others. Mama Ronk wiped her tears and looked at Tamawa. Would they even listen? Would they show me mercy? They will listen, Baba Ade said. But only if you are truthful and remorseful. Do not try to excuse what you have done. Speak from your heart. Reluctantly, Mama Ronk nodded. I will try, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The next morning, Baba Ade gathered the elders under the Irako tree in the center of the village. Saad and Tamawa stood to the side, nervous but determined to see things through. Mama Ronk sat on a low stool, her head bowed. As the elders settled in, Baba Ade stepped forward and addressed them. My friends, we have gathered today because a dark truth must come to light. One of our own has done something that has brought harm to the spirits of the dead and endangered the peace of our village. The elders murmured in confusion, their eyes darting between Baba Ade and Mama Ronk. Ronk, Baba Ade said, turning to her, tell them what you have done. Mama Ronk hesitated, her hands shaking. Finally she looked up, her face pale. I used water from the cemetery to cook my food, she said, her voice trembling. I thought it would make my meals better, and it did. But I didn't think about the spirits, about how it would disturb their rest. I was wrong and I'm sorry. The elders gasped in shock. One of them, Baba Cole, stood up. You mean to say that all this time, you've been feeding us food made with cursed water? Mama Ronk nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yes, I know it was wrong. I've lost my gift as punishment and I'll never cook again. But I beg you to forgive me. The elders conferred in low voices, their expressions grave. Finally Baba Cole spoke again. What is done cannot be undone. But the spirits have already punished you, and it is not our place to add to their judgment. From this day forward you will live among us, but you will no longer cook or take part in the feasts. Do you accept this? Mama Ronk nodded. I accept. The elders turned to Baba Ade. And the spirits, one of them asked, will they leave us in peace? They will, Baba Ade said. But we must honor them. We will gather tonight at the cemetery to offer prayers and gifts, asking for their forgiveness. As the elders dispersed, Saad and Tamawa felt a mixture of relief and unease. The truth was out, but the shadow of what had happened still hung over the village. That night, the villagers gathered at the cemetery, holding lanterns and carrying offerings of food, drink, and cloth. Baba Ade led the prayers, his deep voice echoing into the starry sky. As they prayed, a faint mist rose from the ground, swirling gently before vanishing into the night. The air grew warm and the wind whispered softly through the trees. The spirits have accepted our offering, Baba Ade said. The balance is restored. But as the villagers began to leave, Saad couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching them from the shadows of the cemetery. The days that followed were strange for the village of Olorunwa. Life seemed to return to normal, but the weight of what had happened lingered in the air. Mama Ronk, once the most celebrated cook in the village, now lived quietly in her small hut. She no longer attended feasts or shared in the laughter of her neighbors. Saad and Tamawa often saw her sitting outside her home, her hands idle and her eyes distant. Despite her fall from grace, some villagers still brought her small gifts of food and water. While she had done wrong, they understood she had also suffered greatly for her mistakes. One evening, weeks after the incident, Mama Ronk called Saad and Tamawa to her home. She greeted them with a weak smile and motioned for them to sit. I want to thank you, she began, her voice soft but sincere. You could have let the spirits take me, but you chose mercy. Because of you, I have a chance to start again, even if it's a simple life. Saad and Tamawa exchanged glances. It wasn't an easy choice, Saad admitted. But we believed you deserved a second chance. Mama Ronk nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I've learned my lesson. I thought I needed my cooking to make people love me. I didn't realize that love built on lies and harm isn't real love. From now on, I will live honestly even if it means I have less. That night, as the children walked home, Baba Ade joined them on the path. He carried his lantern, its light flickering warmly in the cool evening breeze. You two did well, he said, his deep voice full of pride. Your decision wasn't easy, but it brought peace to the spirits and a chance for Mama Ronk to change. That is the balance we all must strive for. Saad looked up at him. Do you think she'll really change? That is her journey now, Baba Ade said. But you gave her the opportunity, and that is a powerful gift. Remember, children, true strength lies not in punishing others but in giving them the chance to do better. As they reached the village square, Baba Ade stopped and turned to the children. There is a lesson in this for all of us, he said. Greed and shortcuts may bring temporary success, but they always come at a cost. Honest work and respect for others, living or dead, are the only paths to lasting peace. Saad and Tamawa nodded, their hearts a little lighter. They knew the story of Mama Ronk would be told for years to come, not as a tale of her delicious food, but as a reminder of the dangers of greed and the power of redemption. As the village lights flickered in the distance, The children walked home with Baba Ade, their steps steady and their minds filled with the hope of a brighter, wiser future.